If discipline feels impossible, it's not because you're weak, it's because your brain has been trained against you. Discipline is not about willpower. Self-discipline is often misunderstood. Most people believe that discipline is about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. They think it requires extreme willpower, motivation, or even suffering. As a result, many people fail repeatedly, feel guilty, and eventually give up on self-improvement altogether. But modern neuroscience tells us a very different story. Discipline is not primarily a moral issue. It is not a personality trait you are born with or without. And it is certainly not about punishing yourself into productivity. Discipline is largely a biological and neurological process. At the center of this process is one powerful chemical in your brain, dopamine. Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but this is a dangerous oversimplification. Dopamine is not about pleasure itself. Dopamine is about motivation, anticipation, desire, and drive. It is the chemical that pushes you to act. Every habit you have, good or bad, is built on dopamine. Every lack of discipline you struggle with is connected to how dopamine is being used, misused, or overstimulated. If you understand dopamine, you can train discipline in a systematic, sustainable way. If you don't understand dopamine, you will rely on motivation, and motivation always fades. In this video, we will explore what dopamine really is and how it works, why modern life destroys discipline by hijacking dopamine, how overstimulation makes you lazy, distracted, and unmotivated, and most importantly, practical methods to train self-discipline through dopamine management. This is not about extreme dopamine detoxes or unrealistic monk-like lifestyles. This is about learning how to use dopamine intelligently so discipline becomes natural instead of forced. Let's begin. Part 1. Understanding dopamine, the engine of discipline. Dopamine is about anticipation, not reward. One of the biggest myths about dopamine is that it is released when you feel pleasure. In reality, dopamine spikes before pleasure. Dopamine is released when your brain expects a reward, not when it receives it. That means dopamine is what gets you off the couch. It is what makes you open your laptop. It is what drives you toward action. When dopamine is healthy and balanced, you feel focused, energized, curious, motivated to pursue long-term goals. When dopamine is overstimulated or dysregulated, you feel lazy, distracted, addicted to short-term pleasure, unable to stick with difficult tasks. Discipline is not about trying harder. Discipline is about aligning dopamine with the right behaviors. The dopamine prediction system. Your brain is constantly predicting what actions will bring reward. If scrolling social media gives you instant stimulation, your brain learns, this action gives fast dopamine, do this again. If working on a long-term goal feels boring and unrewarding, your brain learns, this action gives little dopamine, avoid it. Over time, your brain becomes trained, not by logic, but by dopamine patterns. This is why intelligent, ambitious people still struggle with discipline. Their dopamine system has simply been trained incorrectly. Part 2. How modern life destroys discipline. The era of artificial dopamine. For most of human history, dopamine was earned through effort, hunting, building, learning, creating, social bonding. Today, dopamine is available instantly, endlessly, and without effort. Examples include social media, short-form videos, online games, porn, junk food, constant notifications. These sources deliver high dopamine spikes with minimal effort. The brain loves efficiency, so it chooses the easiest source of dopamine. Over time, this creates a dangerous pattern: low effort, high dopamine; high effort, low dopamine. This is the opposite of discipline. Dopamine overload and motivation collapse. When dopamine is constantly overstimulated, the brain adapts. It reduces sensitivity. This is called dopamine downregulation. As a result, simple tasks feel exhausting. Long-term goals feel meaningless. You crave stimulation but feel empty. You procrastinate even on things you care about. This is not laziness. This is a neurochemical imbalance. And no amount of motivational quotes will fix it. Only dopamine management will. Part 3. The core principle of dopamine-based discipline. Discipline is built by delaying dopamine, not eliminating it. A common mistake people make is trying to eliminate dopamine completely. They attempt extreme dopamine detoxes: no phone, no entertainment, no pleasure. This often leads to burnout and relapse. The goal is not to remove dopamine. The goal is to restructure when and how dopamine is released. The fundamental rule is simple: effort first, dopamine later. When your brain learns that dopamine comes after effort, discipline becomes automatic. Part 4. Practical methods to train discipline through dopamine management. Method 1. Delay instant gratification. The first method is learning to delay dopamine. Every time you delay an easy pleasure, you strengthen discipline. Examples: do not check your phone immediately after waking up. Work for 30 to 60 minutes before consuming entertainment. Exercise before listening to music or podcasts. This teaches your brain effort comes first, reward comes later. Over time, your baseline motivation increases. Method 2. Remove dopamine stacking. Dopamine stacking happens when you combine multiple pleasurable stimuli at once. Examples: watching videos while eating, listening to music while scrolling social media, working while constantly checking notifications. This overloads the dopamine system. Instead, practice single-source dopamine. Eat without screens. Work without background stimulation. Walk without headphones sometimes. This resets sensitivity and improves focus. Method 3. Make effort dopaminergic. You can train your brain to associate dopamine with effort itself. How? By consciously rewarding effort mentally. After completing a difficult task, pause and acknowledge, "This was hard. I kept going. This effort matters." This may sound simple, but it strengthens dopamine release tied to effort. Over time, the brain begins to enjoy challenge. Method 4. Use progress tracking. Dopamine responds strongly to visible progress. That is why games are addictive. They show progress clearly. Apply this to discipline. Track days of consistency. Break big goals into small milestones. Use checklists or habit trackers. Each small win triggers a healthy dopamine release. Method 5. Reduce dopamine noise in the environment. Your environment constantly shapes dopamine. Simple changes can have massive effects. Turn off non-essential notifications. Keep your phone out of reach while working. Use grayscale mode on your phone. Designate specific times for entertainment. Less stimulation equals more focus equals more discipline. Method 6. Embrace boredom training. Boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is dopamine recovery. When you allow boredom, the brain resets. Creativity increases. Motivation slowly returns. Practice sitting without stimulation. Short walks without phone. Waiting without checking messages. Doing nothing for 5 to 10 minutes. This strengthens impulse control. Method 7. Regulate sleep and sunlight. Dopamine is deeply connected to circadian rhythm. Poor sleep destroys discipline at a biological level. Key habits: wake up at consistent times, get sunlight in the morning, avoid screens before bed. When dopamine rhythm is stable, discipline becomes easier. Method 8. Use cold exposure and physical effort. Physical discomfort increases dopamine baseline over time. Examples: cold showers, intense exercise, breath control. These train the nervous system to handle discomfort without panic. Discipline grows when discomfort no longer feels threatening. Part 5. Long-term dopamine discipline strategy. Discipline as a skill, not a mood. Discipline is not something you feel, it is something you train. Every time you choose effort over instant dopamine, you reinforce neural pathways. Over weeks and months, focus improves, cravings decrease, confidence grows, self-respect returns. This is real discipline. Avoiding extremes. Do not aim for perfection. Dopamine mismanagement happens to everyone. The key is awareness, not guilt. When you fall off track, simply reset. Consistency beats intensity. Conclusion: become the architect of your dopamine. You are not broken. Your lack of discipline is not a personal failure. You are living in a world designed to hijack dopamine. But once you understand how dopamine works, you gain power. Discipline is no longer about force. It becomes about design. You design your environment. You design your habits. You design your rewards. And slowly, quietly, your brain adapts. When dopamine works for you, not against you, discipline stops being a struggle. It becomes who you are.